Hello, welcome back to GMT. I'm Ben Bland. It sounds like the plot of an Indiana Jones film, the quest to return priceless treasures stolen from a West African kingdom back to their rightful owners. But this is far from fiction. 120 years ago, the British military took thousands of artifacts from Benin, including many sculptures. The Benin Bronzes, as they're known, were scattered all around the world, with many now on display in museums. But there are moves to bring the treasures home. Next year, the Netherlands will host a summit to discuss returning the art to Benin City in modern-day Nigeria. Joining me from Santa Barbara is Professor Sylvester Okwunodu Ogbechie, an art historian at the University of California, and from our Edinburgh studio, Zimbabwean author Tendai Huchu. So, Professor, we'll start with you. Do you think this is the right move, or is it all sort of a little bit after the event and too late to make any real difference?
I think this is very much the right move, and thank you, Ben, for having me on the program. This is very much the right move, and it's a move that comes almost 120 years too late. There has been constant requests for the return of these artworks since they were taken away in 1897. We have to consider several factors here, one of which is, do Africans have a right to actually interact with artworks created by their ancestors? And I think if we look at it from that viewpoint, then this is a very good move because it allows people in Benin City a greater chance, to actually claim ownership of these artworks that are a very important aspect of Benin cultural heritage.
Tenda, I'd like to bring you in. Do you think the museums in question perhaps deserve some credit for being responsible custodians of these treasures and preserving them for people to enjoy, many, many years on?
Well, I'm sure the British Museum and its European counterparts who hold these looted, stolen items will make a song and dance about how they are these wonderful moral actors. But the fact remains, as the professor outlined, these things have been spoken about for decades now. The Nigerians have been asking for their property back, and they have been stonewalling, and they have been generally, refusing to give this stuff back. So it is a step in the right direction, but it is, a little too late, I think.
Professor Ogbechie, it has been suggested that perhaps Nigeria could buy back these items if they were put up for auction. Is that a possible solution, do you think?
That's a very terrible idea, and this will be akin to asking Holocaust victims to purchase back artworks that were looted from their ancestors during the Holocaust. We are human beings. Africans are human beings, and we're the oldest human beings on this planet. The artworks in question had been preserved very carefully and safely in the palace of the Benin kings for over 600 years before the British took them. The fact that Africans are able to be careful custodians of their own culture is not something that any of the early explorers to Africa doubted. The fact that these artworks are actually being sold for huge sums of money is one of the major issues involved here. How do Africans get a share of the value that these artworks produced, considering the fact that the Benin kings spent over 60% of gross national product for over 400 years to purchase the materials that were used to create these artworks? These works did not fall from the sky. They were commissioned by kings who commissioned bronze casters to produce them. The bronze casters were paid. These were actually carefully created works of art. So the idea that Africans should now be compelled to buy back what is originally ours is adding insult to injury. I don't think anybody should raise that issue anymore. Now, what the gentleman said about security and about this being too late, I don't agree. There are a lot of problems with returning artworks to Africa, one of which is about the unstable nature of African governments. But nevertheless, I point out that many Western companies do business in Africa and manage to make huge sums of profit without having everything they own stolen from them. It's a matter of creating the right security. Okay. And art theft, by the way, is a global matter.
Okay, I just want to ask Tendai, that point there about if these items are returned, how do you make sure they end up in the right hands? People are going to look after them responsibly.
Well, I mean, Nigeria is a very sophisticated nation. They have a National Commission for Museums and Monuments that look after these things. And they have been making this claim basically since independence, since 1960. So I'm sure they have measures in place. I think this argument about security is often used to try to deny the claimants the right to their items, to say, oh, well, we've been looking after them very well in the British Museum, therefore they should not be repatriated. But that's not the case at all. And you've also got to look at the fact that this is not an isolated incident. You have the Greeks making the same claims about the marbles that are in the British Museum. The Chinese have similar claims. This seems to be a global problem, and it is a step in the right direction that the British Museum is looking at these things and thinking of returning them, but I think security is just an excuse.
Okay, we must leave it there. Really good to talk to you both. Tendai Huchu in Edinburgh and Professor Sylvester Ogbechie in California. Thank you. Well, that brings us to the end of GMT. You can reach me and some of the team here on Twitter. I'm at Ben M. Bland. Thanks for watching.